Hello everyone, I'm Andrew, and today I'm going to talk about all the books that I read in April. I read a total of 6 books in April, and of those, 4 of them were graphic novels or comic books. The first book that I read was Spill Zone, written by Scott Westerfeld and illustrated by Alex Pullivand, and this is a story about Addison. Addison lives in a world where her town has been subject to something called the Spill. No one knows what it is, whether it's extra-dimensional beings, some radioactive spill, whether angels have come down from the sky. No one knows, but it's been quarantined off because when the spill happened, chaos broke out, many people died, and she and her sister are 2 of the few people who managed to escape from the city. Addison and her sister still live near the city, and to make money, Addison illegally goes back into the spill zone to take photos of the weird and impossible and creepy things that go on there. Ever since the spill, Addison's sister has been mute, and she always carries around this special doll. There are some interesting things about the doll, but I cannot tell you because of spoilers, but it gets kind of weird and creepy. This world is very fascinating. It is strange, it is creepy. You never find out exactly what caused the spill, at least not in this first book. And I really love that. It was sort of a Twilight Zone kind of feeling, where everything is just creepy and odd and fascinating, so I really loved the world building in this book. It was very well done. However, the plot and the characters I felt like were not super compelling, except for that doll that I mentioned earlier. I liked it though. I do want to learn more about the spill and see what happens to Addison and her family, and so I probably will read the second book. And I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I read a book that was absolutely amazing. It is Real Queer America, LGBT Stories from Red States by Samantha Allen. This book is nonfiction. Samantha Allen is a transgender journalist, and in the summer of 2017, she went on a road trip across the country with her friend to visit red states, visit queer communities and queer people living in those red states, find out about their lives, what their communities are like, and how they're fighting for queer people in their communities and in the nation. This book, I was expecting it to be interesting, but it was really, really fascinating, and it actually meant so much to me, and it changed my perspective completely. Small towns and conservative places aren't always necessarily like hellholes for queer people, as I found out in this book. Also, it was deeply personal to me as I moved from a bigger city back to my conservative hometown, and that's where I actually found my queer group of friends, my queer found family, that mean a lot to me. So I really connected with a lot of the people in this book. This book goes through places like Utah, Texas, Mississippi, Indiana, Arkansas, and really gives you a good picture of what queer life is like in America outside of places like New York and San Francisco. I absolutely loved this. I'm going to recommend it until the end of time, and I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Fake Blood by Whitney Gardner. This is a graphic novel about AJ, who is going into 6th grade, where he meets a girl named Nia. He is attracted to Nia and he wants to get her attention, so he notices that she is always talking about vampires and reading about them. So, he pretends to be a vampire. He puts in fake teeth, he does have fake blood, like the title says, and he makes himself look like a creature of the night to her. However, the plot twist is, it turns out Nia is not fascinated by vampires. She is actually a vampire slayer. And that twist made this very delightful. It has a lot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer references that I think people will enjoy, and it was really cute. However, the story didn't really have me convinced. I wasn't totally sucked into it. I would, however, recommend this to anyone who's in like elementary school or middle school. I think it would be a really good story for that age. And anyone who likes vampires and wants to see like sort of a parody of them, I think would appreciate this book. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. After that, I read the first volume of Spirit Fingers by Han Kyung-chul. Let me talk about this cover for a second. This cover is not entirely representative of what the book is about, with his, shirt unbuttoned and his abs showing and all that. That only happens one time in this volume, okay? But this is actually a webcomic that has been published in an actual book form, and it is entirely in Korean. There is an English version online that I will link down in the description. But this is about a girl named Uyeon, and she is very insecure. She doesn't really like her body. She's very shy. She has a lot of social anxiety. But despite that, she is pulled into this group of artists who call themselves Spirit Fingers, who are this kooky, crazy cast of characters. She gets drawn into their wild antics and their group and starts to discover things about them and about herself. It is a really good sort of slice of life drama, somewhere in between those two kind of genre. And I found it really, really cute. It was quirky, and honestly, I think this would be relatable to anybody who deals with anxiety or anyone who likes art. And also, it was very humorous. Koreans love their poop humor. There was a whole page dedicated to what it feels like after you poop. I was laughing so much throughout this book, and if you read Korean, or if you want to read the English version, I highly recommend that you check this out. I'm going to read the second volume for the Asian Readathon this month, and it was just so enjoyable. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I read one of my most anticipated books of the year, and that is Storm of Locusts by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is the second book in her Sixth World series that follows Maggie Hoski. This is set on the Navajo Reservation, which has been reborn as Dineta, the Navajo Nation, after the apocalypse. The big water has come and destroyed most of America. Government has collapsed, and along with that, the Navajo gods and heroes and monsters have been reborn. Maggie is a monster slayer, and in the first book she goes on this adventure with this other guy named Kai. I cannot actually tell you a lot about what happens in this book because that would be a huge spoiler for the first book, but let me just say it was really amazing. Maggie is looking for someone who is lost, and she gets together this girl gang to do it. The 3 of them and the few other characters get together and try to hunt this person down. It was really fun. These books are kind of like Mad Max, but Navajo and with magic. I did not actually think I would like the first book, but this series is one of my all-time new favorites. I will say one thing though, there are a lot of typos in this book. The writing and the characterization and the plot and everything were good, but based on the typos alone, I felt like I was reading a first or second draft of this book, and that really pulled me out of the story while I was reading, so I had to dock a whole half a star just for those typos because there were so many. So I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. The final thing that I read in April was Volume 2 of The Backstagers. This is written by James Tynion IV, illustrated by Ryan Sigg, and colored by Walter Biamonte. I really loved the first volume of this comic book series, and I liked this volume even more. This is about the tech crew at an all-boys high school, and the literal magic that goes on backstage. Backstage there is this twisting, changing maze of hallways where giant spiders and tool rats and bridges made out of cloth are all over the place. It's just completely magical and fantastical, and I really love that feeling in this story. It is very cute and very queer, and this volume had much more of a running story than the first volume did. And I'm not actually sure if there are any more volumes of this comic book out there. If there aren't, I think there may not be. I'm pretty sad about that because I really love it. The story, the art, the characters, the plot, everything. And this is probably my new all-time favorite comic book. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Well, those are all the books that I read in April. Leave a comment down below telling me what your favorite book from the month was, and I am so excited this month to do the Asian Readathon. Anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye!